Welcome to the Heen View, a podcast series which interviews a range of sports club representatives and sports identities and officials during the COVID-19 shutdown. We find out what these people are doing during the current health crisis with some of our most popular winter sports seasons postponed. I'm Mark Heenan, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Stone. Welcome, Stoney. And just before I get along to you, Stoney, isn't it great to have AFL footy back after the shutdown?
Yeah, it is good. And even though there's no crowds at the moment, our next guest is going to be, he'll tell us a bit of his insight what it's like to have no crowds, which is a great thing.
Well, interestingly enough, this guest actually played in a little bit of a crowd over the weekend. So thanks for that, Mark Stone. Today's guest had an important role during the AFL restart weekend last weekend. He's been a field umpire since 2017, where he made his AFL umpiring debut in the Round 5 clash between the Western Bulldogs and Brisbane Lions. He hails from South Australia, where he umpired 166 SANFL games and umpired SANFL Grand Finals in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2015 and 2016. Before the AFL season went into shutdown, he officiated in his 50th AFL game between Adelaide and Sydney in Round 1 at Adelaide Oval. Prior to last weekend, he was in quarantine for 14 days in the Barossa Valley and was one of 4 field umpires in the AFL showdown between Port Adelaide and Adelaide. He has served as a SANFL umpiring recruiting officer and as a finance broker. We welcome to the Heen View AFL field umpire Leigh Haussen to the Heen View. Welcome, Leigh.
Thanks, no worries. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on the program. And I guess one of the things that I am really looking forward to this interview is talking to you about your experiences so far as an AFL umpire, not just in your life, but we think it's a fascinating story what you've gone through over the last sort of 3-4 weeks, or when you elected to put yourself up to be an umpire with the SA showdown. And it wasn't just any SA showdown between Port Adelaide and Adelaide. But take us into the quarantine period. Take us into, hey, I want to put my hand up to be an umpire. Take us into that quarantine period, and also with the other umpires, the field umpires, because there were 4 of you, and who they were as well.
Yeah, sure, no worries. Well, it all happened pretty quick, to be honest. And a lot of the stuff has been occurring like that this year, because we just, the fixture gets released, and then all of a sudden the game's in 3 weeks' time and we have to quarantine for 14 days. So it all kind of just got put out there. For me, my motivation, I put up my hand straight away because my brother had just had a baby girl only a month before the showdown. So for me, I didn't know when I was going to be able to get back to Adelaide and see her. So as soon as this one came up, I certainly put up my hand and said I'd love to go. And then it was a similar case actually for Eleni. Her brother had a baby as well, and so she was desperate to go home and see her nephew. And then the other 2 guys, Craig hails from Adelaide originally, so all the 3 of us are all South Australians by birth. And then Matty Nichols is one of our really senior guys, and he's quite flexible in terms of work. He's able to just work on a laptop, so he was more than happy to go over as well. So I guess we kind of just got thrown together a bit random. Often I think there's probably more thinking about, who's the right person for certain games. But, when these sort of things come up, they throw together a panel pretty quickly. And, yeah, we were the 4 selected. Yeah.
Now, you're from McLaren Vale, I believe, and there was a story about in the Barossa Valley. You've quarantined in the Barossa Valley, as Mark said. How did that come about that you're in the Barossa Valley?
Well, it was interesting with the AFL's discussion with the South Australian government. Basically, we had to be in isolation somewhere, so they were looking at what's the best way that we can stay fit, keep active, but at the same time quarantine from the general public. So sitting in a hotel room in the middle of the city wasn't appealing, particularly when you can't get out. So by being in the Barossa, we were able to, obviously it's a lot more isolated, we were able to get out of our room and use the facilities there, because we were the only people in the actual resort for the first sort of week we were there. So we just had many more sort of options in that sense. Yeah.
Leigh, one of the biggest things about this situation is, I mean, not only you hail from South Australia, but you have a good understanding of how this showdown works between Adelaide and Adelaide and their fierce rivals. And who would think that maybe in a few weeks' time or in the coming weeks that both teams might be sharing a plane together, like what Essendon and North Melbourne did on the weekend, going up to Sydney. But I mean, you came back on a flight also as well. But take us into that SA showdown and what happened on the weekend, because as I rightly pointed out at the start, there was this game actually had fans. So I think there was around about 2,000 fans. Might have been more Port Adelaide because I believe it was their home game. They wore the prison bar jumper that's been in the news lately. But also there were Adelaide fans and they were sitting in the riverbank stand. Could you hear them out in the crowd or out on the field?
Yeah, absolutely. The crowd noise at Adelaide Oval, I've got no idea why. It must be the shape of the stands or something like that, but it's very loud at Adelaide Oval in a regular game. And even with the sort of the 2,000 people there, it didn't feel like there was only 2,000. It definitely felt like there was more. And I suppose adding to that, like you said, the Crows and Port obviously hate each other. And it's a rivalry which Victorians struggle to understand because there's only two teams. It's like the Hawthorn-Geelong rivalry, I suppose, but it's only ever that rivalry. I remember, when Hawthorn and Essendon used to be rivals, and now it's Hawthorn and Geelong and all that sort of thing. Well, it's always Adelaide and Port, and they always have hated each other, and I'm sure they always will. So, very passionate fan base.
Leigh, before my next question, who do you support? Are you allowed to support football?
No, not allowed to support anyone. I grew up in Adelaide. I would love to see South Adelaide win a premiership in the SANFL, but at AFL level, I'm not fussed.
Now, you've done 50 games, right? That's a great achievement, even to play AFL football one game, but 50 games is great. What made you take up umpiring way back when, whatever league you were umpiring?
Yeah, well, you can only see my head in this, but I'm the skinniest bloke going around.
We'll get to that later, Leigh, about the little skinny tactic nickname.
No weight.
Yeah, so I knew pretty quickly I was never going to make it as a player. And to be honest, I didn't take up umpiring thinking, I'm going to umpire AFL football one day. I took up umpiring because it's just a way to stay involved in football when I was probably a little bit chicken and thought I'd get hurt playing. So took up umpiring and, best move I ever made, that's for sure.
Hey, Leigh, and also Mark Stone, we all know who Razor Ray Chamberlain is, right? Okay. Now, we know that both of you are field umpires, but there's another thing that you have in common with him. You both work in the finance industry. So is there a connection between finance and AFL umpiring? Is there a few others like that? Or is there a bit of a segue? I mean, have you spoken to Razor about that?
Yeah, Ray and I certainly chat. Alex Wedden as well, as a finance broker as well. It's a really good job as an AFL umpire to have, because literally just need my laptop and I can work from anywhere. So it's really handy in that sense. When I was in the Barossa, I was still able to work. So that was really good. Ray and Alex are great resources for me. We bounce ideas off each other and that sort of thing, which is good. Otherwise, I know we've probably got 5 or 6 teachers on the list. So there's a lot of teachers as well. It just happens to be like that. I don't think there's any real reason as to why, but yeah.
Flexibility, Leigh, that's what the key is. Did you umpire the first week with no crowds?
Yep. Yeah, so the first week I was in Adelaide as well, actually. So I had Adelaide and Sydney.
How was that? How was that?
It was really odd. And what made it even more odd was it was a Saturday twilight game. Sunny, perfect weather for football. Like, there should have been 50,000 fans screaming their heads off, and there was no one. And interestingly, the Crows lost by 3 points. So normally you'd walk off and get half lynched, and walked off, and a few people said, "Oh, well done today," and that was it. And it was different, that's for sure.
We love talking to different guests on this program, and obviously you being the first umpire, but there's many unique perspectives that we see with the COVID-19 shutdown. This period when you not only just went over to Adelaide and then you had to quarantine in the Barossa Valley, but the actual lead up to the game. So I think you were telling me before we scheduled this interview or around the time in the lead up to our podcast at the moment, is that you mentioned how you were coming down to Adelaide and you spent obviously a little bit of time, I think it was probably 36 hours. So you left the Barossa, came to Adelaide. Can you just take us into even the accommodation side and that period from there? And we also understand that the Adelaide Crows got into a bit of hot water where you were staying because of the, breaching those COVID-19 protocols. So can you just take us into the accommodation from the Barossa Valley perspective, but then also coming down to Adelaide 36 hours before the game?
Yeah, sure. So we obviously had to serve our 14 days up in the Barossa, and we stayed at the Novotel in the Barossa, and I should mention them because they looked after us so well. I really couldn't be happy with the 14 days there. It didn't feel like it went really quickly, and we had a lot of fun, so that was good. And then so the Friday morning we were entitled or allowed to come out of our quarantine, and obviously the game was Saturday night. So the first thing on Friday morning is we had to go and get our COVID test done. So that's not the most enjoyable experience. They put a stick up your nose, for want of a better way of putting it. It's a little bit uncomfortable. So we had that done first thing in the morning. And then from that point onwards, we stayed at the Playford in the CBD of Adelaide. And I guess the reasoning for that is if any other time I did a game in Adelaide, I would be going from the hotel in the CBD. I would be there at sort of the same time, maybe Friday afternoon instead. And so it was just a more natural lead into the game, or more like normal, I suppose. So we didn't want to be driving from the Barossa to the game or something new that we hadn't experienced before. So that was the reasoning for swapping hotels for the last couple of days.
I was just looking through a bio of yours yourself, and thanks to Heen, he's got me some information. Umpire recruitment and the golden whistle. I'm really in the community and about where your background's from and what you do and give back to the game. And you as an umpire recruitment, just tell us a bit about what that means and what the golden whistle means for you. Okay,
so umpiring recruitment is a role within the SANFL. So it's one of 5 or 6 roles in the SANFL umpiring department, and essentially the aim of that is to get more people into umpiring. So I did that role for 2 and a bit years, and involved going out to schools. Some schools have footy programs, so we'd go there and run an umpiring module in that. Other schools, we'd go and we'd run just basic umpires courses, that sort of thing. I'm just trying to get kids involved in umpiring, or at least let them know that's an option, because some people they've only ever played and that's all they've thought about. They've never thought about umpiring. And then also responsible for some of the female and Indigenous pathways that the SANFL have set up too. So it was a really rewarding job. And to be honest, I'd still be doing it if I was living in Adelaide, because I love doing it. But yeah, obviously a bit hard to do that one from Melbourne. And the golden whistle, that's the highest award in field umpiring in South Australia. So essentially it's the best field umpire in South Australia. So it's the highest honour you can get. So it's a great award, and your name goes up. It's etched on an honour board at Adelaide Oval. So every now and then I get friends who are in the Adelaide Oval and they see your name. So that's pretty cool. It's a really cool achievement, I suppose. Yeah.
I was reading about Eleni and some of her experiences going into the isolation hub, or the period before your, not just the 2 weeks, but also going into the Adelaide Sydney game. So yeah, it's great to just see that even in writing, and just some of the things you have to go through, and helping in the garden, or just doing things that you wouldn't normally do. And obviously you have friends and family that are based over there. But just take us into the AFL umpires as such. How close are they? I mean, one of our good friends that helped me set up this interview has worked for the AFL umpires, and both of us know him pretty well. you know, they seem a very close, tight bunch, and they love the fact that in some ways that they can be the unsung heroes on the field, but you don't always want to get noticed. But I want to know about the umpires, because they all come from all different lands, and different country, or different states, I should say. And I guess that there is a close connection in a lot of ways, but you know, there's a lot of travel involved. But how close are you as a group, and what do you do? Things like, even during this period where we've had COVID, have you had to have a lot of Zoom meetings with other AFL umpires, and how important is that sort of close connection with the umpires, even though you live in different parts of the world?
Yeah, so we are a very tight-knit group. Often there's not a lot of love for us, so we support each other, be it, you know, each other's success, or if you do make a bad decision and you're on the back page of the paper, I guarantee you're going to have 30 messages from all the other fieldies saying, look, it's one mistake, and yeah, you'll be fine. So very close-knit group. For an example, I got married in January and had 3 groomsmen. One was my brother and the other 2 were umpires. So you have to. You do so much. You spend so much time to make it to this level, so you become really close with each other. And I suppose, yes, COVID has definitely made it harder. We're trying to isolate as much as possible, because if I was to be infected and I'm training with 2 or 3 other umpires, it then wipes out, you know, a whole group of us. So yeah, a lot more Zoom and WebEx type coaching sessions and all that, which is fine. It's good. You can do it from home, but you certainly do miss that social side of things. And that was one of the things I loved most about being in the Barossa was, you know, I was there with 2 other guys and we had a great time. Yeah, just hanging out again, I suppose. Yeah.
Leigh, 2 quick ones. Walk down the streets of Adelaide, you would be very well known. You're a very top umpire in the SANFL, and now you're in Melbourne. You're in obscurity. You wouldn't be known at all. But going back home, are you known? Obviously down the streets or in the streets of Adelaide or Melbourne?
Not too much. You always, every now and then, you'll get someone that recognises you. I'm glad I don't get recognised, to be perfectly honest. I couldn't do what Ray Chamberlain or Eleni does, where they are recognised all the time. That's not for me. But yeah, I suppose those guys, they don't have a choice. They're just recognised.
And the other one was that I had in my mind is about full-time umpires. I mean, there's a lot of time. I mean, you do something like 50 kilometres a week as far as a field umpire in season. I mean, that's a lot of work. How much time are you taking during a week as a field umpire in the AFL?
Yeah, well, I'd spend an hour every day exercising at least, whether that be running or sometimes going to the gym or on a bike or Pilates, all that sort of stuff. And then probably spend another 3 or 4 hours a week reviewing vision and coaching and all that. So, it is part-time, but I would be spending 20 hours a week on umpiring at least, I would say. But it's just part of the job. You have to do it. Sometimes it can get a bit tedious, but it's certainly rewarding when you get to go out there on match day, that's for sure.
Hey, Leigh, just to finish off, we always like to have a little bit of fun. You know, we love the information side, but we also love the funny side, the banter side and that sort of stuff. So the little birdie told me that your name is Stick, or Stick because of, you know, the slender frame that you have. There's also the other nickname being Horse, being Haussen with that surname. And also too, Leigh, I have good authority and good mail that when your umpires do something in the media or they're photographed or whatever, or there's something there, you collect the fines. Is that right? Yeah,
that is accurate. Yeah, Benny Carbs has let on too much. Yeah, my nickname. Yeah, my football nickname is Stick because of my slender frame. Yeah, I can go to the gym 5 days a week and it doesn't seem to help. I stay skinny. But yeah, no, I am the fines master, which is a lot of fun. Probably it hasn't been happening so much because of obviously the COVID and using Zoom, but typically once every couple of months, I do a PowerPoint presentation where we basically take the mickey of anyone and everyone, and the fines attached go towards our end of season shenanigans, or end of season do, which is a great day that we hold on the Sunday after grand final day. Yeah.
Mark Stone's a very well-known or sort of high-profile recruiter in Werribee, and he's well aware of this Benny Carbs phenomenon called Ben Carbonaro, who works as a stats man at Werribee as well. So, Mark Stone, what a good shout-out for Ben Carbonaro.
Yeah, Benny's a good man, and he's well known to the umpires and very social, Ben, and loves to get out in the tiles and jig away. I've got one last question for me, Heno, about for Leigh. Do you ever get back home to McLaren Vale? Do you ever go home? And I can imagine, I love the country in country Victoria, but country South Australia would be great to get back and see some of your friends and your relatives and rub shoulders with some of your old mates.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love going home. Generally, every Christmas, we drive home and spend sort of 2 or 3 weeks in Adelaide. And then on top of that, if I have, it seems every summer there's always a wedding or two you get to go to, which is good fun. But normally, this season's obviously different with Corona, but normally I would, if I had an Adelaide game on, say, a Saturday, like the AFL is really good, they'll let me fly home on Monday or Tuesday the next week, so I can stay at mum and dad's house or whatever and catch up with some friends, which is really good to do in the middle of a footy season where you're always flat out and probably don't have time to do anything. So it's like a sort of mini stay, which is, yeah, it's really good.
Leigh, we welcome your thoughts on the Stone Heen view and getting an umpire's perspective. We think it's great what you've done and how you put yourself in a position to go over to Adelaide to do the showdown. Obviously, you've umpired there before. You had your 50th game between Adelaide and Sydney earlier this year. Congratulations on a great achievement with your work that you do, particularly in the finance industry, and also getting married this year. 2020 has been a big year for you, even if football hasn't been the same, and missing a bit of the football world, particularly throughout the months of April and May with the shutdown. But we just really want to thank you for coming on the Stone Heen View, providing us some insight into your life as an AFL umpire, as a field umpire, and also taking us into that quarantine period and all those perspectives that go with it. So thanks for being on the program.
No worries. Thanks for having me, guys.
Mark Stone, what a great guy. Leigh Haussen, I should say. Leigh's, an up and coming umpire, and obviously, from the mail that I've received, he was always going to be a good guest because of those different perspectives that he's had, and particularly going into South Australia and doing the showdown after spending that time in quarantine. So, isn't it great him coming on and just sharing those thoughts?
You know what, Heno? It's really interesting because the AFL is the biggest game in town, and obviously it's been a struggle and tough with the COVID. But in the umpire fraternity, whether you're a fieldy or a boundary or goal umpire, the amount of work they do, and speaking to Ben and a few others have been in it, and I've many years ago used to have an umpire used to umpire in the AFL, and the work they put in, it is like a full-time job. And I wonder, we didn't ask Leigh about possibly down the track whether umpires become full-time because of the work they need to do to become elite footballers are. So umpires maybe in time may become a full-time thing. So thanks to Leigh, and it's been a great chat for him and his background also.
And we might talk to AFL umpires coming up in future programs because we're getting this program up and running, and we've just got 3 sponsors in the last week. We've announced, obviously, the Driftwood Cafe, the Ocean Grove Hotel, and also the Pierview Lolly Shop in Port Arlington as well. So it's great. So you can get in contact at any time if you have a guest on the program. You can check us out on the Stone Heen View. Type in the Stone Heen View on Facebook and Instagram. Our podcast is also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also Podbean. And Stoney, you've got the YouTube channel up and going. So congratulations there. And we'll see you next time on the Stone Heen View. Bye for now.